We don't do the who'd you make anymore.
Yeah.
Who'd you make? Not for a great segment on our podcast.
Who'd you make a bad idea that we stopped doing almost immediately?
You're like, this is going to require a lot more work. I don't have time for that. It's supposed to be
I've made
fun.
like 3 characters for this game.
All right, you ready to get started?
I was born ready.
Welcome, and well met. It's the Jaunty Mantis. It's my favorite time of the week when I get to sit down and record an episode about tabletop role-playing games with my best bud, Jesse.
What's up? I am Jessimus Prime.
Jessimus Prime. And that, dear listener, is an interlude to our topic for this episode, which is...
The Transformers role-playing game. More
That's
than meets the eye.
It's actually called that. It's called Transformers, the role-playing game more than meets the eye.
Wait, it is?
Yeah, it says it right here in the book. More than meets the eye. In the Transformers role-playing game, create your own Autobot character and wage your battle to destroy the evil forces of the Decepticons.
All I gotta say is other RPG podcasts inferior. Jaunty Mantis superior.
Wow. We are just rife with Transformers references.
This is
Jesse,
gonna be 2 guys who watched the original show in the 80s talking about a role-playing game. Buckle in.
I was like, Jesse, you're way bigger of a Transformers fan than I am. You
You're a bigger
probably know
Beast
way
Wars
more
fan than
about
I
it.
am.
I am a bigger Beast Wars fan, that's for sure, but I've never watched Beast Machines. How many
Okay.
different Transformers shows are out there?
Okay. There is Transformers G1, which had
Hmm.
seasons 1 through 3 in the States, maybe a fourth like little thing with the headmasters and the target masters. And then it kind of went away. And then they did a Transformers G2 thing that was mostly just recut clips from like G1. And then there was like Armada and Energon and all that kind of stuff where it was an anime. And they were trying to find the mini cons. And then there was Rescue Bots, which, because of the age of my children, I have that theme song burned into my head just as much as the Transformers one. And then there was Transformers Animated, which actually looks quite fun, but it's a very early aughts stylistically animated. I mean, it looks like Teen Titans Go, the animation style
Hmm.
does.
Hmm.
Um, and then there was the very disappointing War for Cybertron. uh, and then there is Transformers Earthrise, which is going now. And then there's going to be the Transformers 1 animated movie.
That sounds like a lot of Transformers.
I watched the preview for Transformers 1 and I was like, I have no interest in this and I'm going to go see it
What?
anyway.
Why not? Why don't you have any interest in it? Oh, Optimus Prime doesn't have his mouth, or he has a mouth.
Yeah, one,
He doesn't have his face.
I'm deeply suspicious of non-face plated Optimus Prime.
Oh yeah.
I also don't really care about the time when they were friends, him and
Mm-hmm.
Megatron. And the whole thing starting off with they don't have their transformation cogs and they can't transform. I'm like, what, okay.
Well, they better get those in like the first 5 minutes of whatever this movie is. Otherwise,
And then they had like what a Rolling Stones song over the trailer, and I'm like, come on.
as you do.
But we're not
Transformers.
talking about media and how it's disappointing me as they keep reworking properties beloved of my childhood.
Well, I think it's surprising that Transformers is an intellectual property that has not been able to surge and resurge and resurge over the years like it should. Like you look at something like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and they seem to be able to bring that fucking thing back like strong almost every single time.
But does TMNT ever really go away
That's
though?
kind of my point. Like they keep like bringing out a different or new version, just different enough version of it. Like every couple of years or what, I don't know, whatever. It just seems like it's every couple of years. And it's interesting to me that Transformers doesn't really fall into that category. And I
I have
feel
a
like, oh, go ahead.
I have a suspicion that the big MBAs and bigwigs over at Hasbro were like, well, we've moved all the Diaclone line from Japan we can with Marvel writing characters for them. So sail their stuff. Let's just, yeah, we're good. We're good. We killed Optimus Prime in the movie, made a bunch of kids cry. Uh, Try to do another season of the cartoon to sell these headmasters, target masters. They're not making the new toys as fast as we want. We're really phoning it in. We've kind of poisoned the well. Let's just take a break for like 8 years. It'll be fine.
Hmm.
And they did.
Okay. Then what precipitated the is that a word? What caused the Transformers role-playing game, which is what
Uh,
we're
somebody
reviewing
bought the
today?
somebody bought the license would be my guess.
Okay, let's try that again. So for season three, we are reviewing the Transformers role-playing game, More Than Meets the Eye. And Jesse, you were the one that put this on our list. What was the inspiration behind that?
To be honest, I just wanted you to read it so we'd have an excuse when I wanted to play it. Like it was literally nothing more complicated than that. Also, as I started reading it, I was like, yeah, I think this is 3.5 adjacent enough. Matt might actually like it, or he's
Yeah,
gonna be like, why? Uh,
or
it's hard
both.
to tell. Um, and also just, we both love Transformers. In a previous incarnation, not the podcast, but Maddie and I had this idea over a kind of a lost weekend to redub Transformers clips to make like
Hmm.
Starscream a scientist.
Hmm.
Because for those of you who don't remember, there was one throwaway line from like an original, I think season one
That's
of the
right.
original Transformers cartoon, where like they find Jetfire, who is this badass robot. The toy was basically a Veritech from, okay, I got to stop this shit. He was a cool toy, Jetfire was. And
Hmm.
they found him frozen in the ice. And
Hmm.
Starscream gives this non-shrieking sort of like, we were scientists together before the war. And it's like, wait, Starscream was a scientist?
Yeah. Yeah. Starscream was a scientist in the way that like some bully jock managed to get good enough grades to get placed in some sort of, I don't know, advanced program that his dad was paying for because he owns a dealership or something. So he technically graduated with a science degree of some sort. And he's like, I'm a scientist, damn it. Yeah,
Natural
that was
inclination for the
insane.
scientific method and a
Yeah,
null ray.
right. Yeah. Starscream's version of the scientific method is, you know, verbal assaults and laser blasts.
Yes.
So, dear listener, you should know that whenever Jesse is involved in anything, there is always an ulterior motive. And it's something we've come to love about him. Like the ulterior motive for Transformers, the role playing game, was to get me to read it so that I could be a supportive voice and changing over to it at the appropriate time with our gaming group to be like, oh no, I've read it. It's awesome. You guys would really enjoy it. That's two voices now pushing for this game. Just like the ulterior motive for season three to do book reviews is so that people will hear them and then be like, hey, they should review our books. Let's send Jesse free gaming books.
I may have thought that, but I never said it out loud.
I'm saying it out loud. I love it about you. I'm not here to complain. I'm good
But
with it.
I have plans within plans.
Yeah. He is a multifaceted and complex creature.
I'm
So
playing I'm not playing five-dimensional chess. So for the brief overview,
yeah.
Transformers the role-playing game is an under us published by Renegade Studios,
Mm,
who also here, okay, your earlier question, why now for the Transformers games? I think Renegade got a package deal on licenses for RPGs from Hasbro because the Essence 20 role-playing game system is the Transformers role-playing game, the G.I. Joe role playing game, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers role playing game, and the current incarnation of the My Little Pony role playing game, which has had RPGs before this, unlike
Yes.
the other three I just mentioned.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
So yeah, it is a you roll a 20-sided dice with some other stuff thrown in for conflict resolution. You get to play with the core book, heroic Autobots. They do a really good job of like kind of talking about where you want to set the slider. Do
Hmm.
you want to be like over the top Saturday morning cartoons, 80s cartoon? Yeah, you can. You totally can with this. In fact, the adventure in the back is a reprise of the episode with the dam from the
Right.
original series.
Yeah.
But they're also like, do you want to do like a tense character driven drama like the IDW comics? You can.
Hmm.
And it all sort of works together. So I don't yeah, this isn't why it's cooler. Brief overview for character creation. Sorry, I'm am I going on too much?
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay. For character creation, you pick like a background, like you can actually pick a couple of like what you did before the war, and scientist is straight up one of them. Like I was a scientist or a hunter or even a senator. And the
Hmm.
senator thing cracks me up because in the IDW comics, do you know who were senators?
No.
Shockwave was a senator,
Okay.
and he committed some sort of horrific crime. So they removed his face and replaced it with the yellow light face,
Oh,
and
wow.
removed his hands and placed him with lasers. There's a whole thing about it being like a barbaric, outdated punishment. But they also removed his ability to feel emotions. So he's just like a sociopath, genius, former senator.
Right. As you do.
Yeah. And you
Yes.
know who else used to be a senator?
No. Who else?
Ratbat.
Of course he did.
And his name was Ratbat. Senator Ratbat.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Keep going.
So yeah, you just it's neat how those character backgrounds go. They let you move that slider pretty well. I
Hmm.
don't know. So yeah, that's a brief
It's a
overview.
multi-stepped process of character creation, which I think is there's several like highlights in this game and the character creation process. There's people like me that are like they're like I want to give player characters as many different potential combinations as I can think of in this game. And then this game is like be careful what you wish for. It's like, "Oh, you wanted that? Well, here it is. This is what it looks like." And at first I was like, this is awesome. You start with your essence scores and your skills after your character concept, your influences, your origins, your role. And that like I'm like, this is great. And then as I was actually working through it, I was like, wait a minute, there's another part of this. Like I'm an analyst champion, like I'm like, wait a minute, what am I now? I forgot what character I was making here. You know what I mean? Like there's something to be said about keeping things simple and straightforward. And then there's another to be like, oh, did you want complexity? Here it is. So I don't know. I'm kind of iffy on the character creation process. Like I think it speaks to a larger question about um role-playing games that are made from epic intellectual properties. Because I would, even though Transformers has not done the best of job, in my personal opinion, as maybe some other IPs out there. There is this weird like niche of the IP RPG, I guess is what we would call them, right? So like your Star Wars role playing game, the Transformers role playing game, the Middle Earth role playing game, the Song of Ice and Fire role playing game, all that stuff. Is like when you get to a Transformers TTRPG, you don't just like you're not just creating a game to play out those imaginations and adventures of the players who loved Transformers or who loved Transformers, but the game also kind of has to simulate the lore and the fandom of Transformers, and then the way the game plays has to make you feel like it's a Transformers game. Does that make any sense, Jesse?
Yeah, and I gotta say I haven't played this one. I'm not sure that the actual play of this game would make you feel like it's Transformers.
Okay, why is that?
So it's the universal engine of the Essence 20 that they shoved it into, like with all
Okay.
their other ones. Like I was just sitting there thinking as you went through that list of games that simulate intellectual properties, like the setting and fluffs, they all tend to do pretty well. But the first game where like the mechanics made it actually feel like that property on that list, it's the Lord of the Rings game.
Right. Okay. Why is that?
The new one, not MERP. They meticulously made sure that every game statistic is something that's used in Tolkien.
Hmm.
Like you don't, there's no strength, charisma, blah 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 for your stats. It's like there is sorrow and there is fate, and like one of the skill is songs.
Hmm.
Like that
Hmm.
legitimately is useful during the grand council phase of play when you're trying to sway a council because there's like yeah, no, they legitimately was like the play arc is things in Tolkien, the character sheets are things in Tolkien, the art is this badass pencil art that makes you think about the end credits of the movies.
Hmm.
Like it is a tour de force. And having played the starter kit where your hobbits in the Shire, like no, it feels like Tolkien, which is
Right.
the other one's lesser this. This I think they went with complexity on okay, any RPG that's based on a D20 roll
Hmm.
is gonna tend to fall into a trap, in my opinion, of having a separate system for vehicle combat.
Right.
And it's one of those things that having played 2D6 based story games or D6 based story games so much over the last few years, I'm kind of like, oh, I love that it's meaningful when you transform, but also there's like this whole other rule set I have to learn now,
Hmm.
like for vehicle combat. And they abstract it fairly well, but it's still like how fast can you shift into your robot mode? Like that's
Right.
not a thing I want to like I want to just go I transform and then like,
Right.
that's what I
Yeah.
want to do.
Yeah. I would say I love everything you're saying. What I would kind of like, I guess, piggyback onto it or add on to it is that I feel like this is not a role playing game that simulates Transformers as a role playing experience. I think it simulates the fandom as a role playing experience because as I'm looking through this book, I'm like, oh, right, a mode master. That's how you play a character like fucking Soundwave or Blaster. I get it. Like that's the kind of stuff that popped out to me. Is like if you're an uber fan of Transformers, I think this is the game for you because it's got so many like things in there that for somebody like me who is a casual, I guess, fan of the Transformers, I was like looking at this stuff up on the internet, being like, "Oh, okay, all right, yeah, that's a thing." Like you mentioned, if you want to do like the over the top Saturday morning cartoon version, or if you want to do the drama filled IDW version, and I was like, "Oh, that's right, there were like cool IDW Transformers comics
They're
out
really
there."
good.
Yeah, and I think that this game does a really good job of hitting almost all of those important notes in the Transformers milieu. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's more of what the role playing game itself simulates is like your fandom for Transformers. You want to play a tape deck like character with, Rat Bat, the previous senator who now flies out of you. Like you could totally do that. It's in here. It's in the game. So it's gonna play out your fandom instead of like giving you the elements that I think you were describing more akin to the Tolkien role playing game, the Lord of the Rings role playing game. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So
So
go ahead.
here's another thing I was kind of like I'll call this what do you do because it talks about rolling dice. It's a role play
Mm-hmm.
game. You roll dice.
Mm-hmm.
So this Essence 20 system uses you have four attributes, your essences that determine how many skill points you get. And then you plug skills into a pretty limited set of skills, which I'm for a limited skill set. I think I'm on the record in an earlier episode being like
Mm-hmm.
skills are okay,
Yeah.
keep it brief. Um and your point however many points you have in that skill starting at a D2 is another dice you roll with your d20 when you're trying to beat your target number. So you might be rolling a d20 plus a d6.
Hmm.
And then your perks, think feats if you're used to D&D, contain lots of little tools to either shift yours up or shift the enemies down, which means, okay, from D2 to D12, it's pretty easy to do the shift because it's one. But at the bottom end, it's like, or top end, it's like 2D8. Roll and like it starts going off the chart as you shift up. And I'm just like, why?
Why? Because that's the system.
Yeah, I know, but why does that, what does that do as a system? What is it, what is the question that answered? How many dice can I make someone roll to do this one thing?
Yeah,
I
people like
mean,
rolling dice.
okay, fair. Yeah, I have to play it. I have to try it.
I
But
think this really is. I think that's kind of what's tripping us up about this is I think that this is a game you really do have to play to I mean we covered books of other books in this season that you can get the gist of and you're like I'm excited to play it. But this Transformers role playing game is kind of a I don't know what to call it. Like a paradox of like it seems cool. I'm having a difficult time wrapping my head around it because I feel like part of the experience of making characters should be in a group. I think that's a
yeah,
huge part of how you should make a character in this Transformers game. I mean, I think in general it's a good idea to make characters as a group if you can, but I mean, let's face it, that isn't always a possibility. And sometimes you make characters separately, and then everybody shows up to session zero, and you're like making each other laugh, or you're like, "Oh my God, that's awesome!" or you start like involving them with bonds or whatever. And I really think that if you are not creating a character as a group in this Transformers game, you are not doing it correctly.
yeah,
Okay. So
yeah.
I,
Well, I mean, I read somewhere once a long time ago, and it suddenly clicked for me. The original Transformers is a superheroes cartoon.
yes.
Like Mirage can make mirages.
Hmm.
Like, they've all got like Skywarp can teleport. Like Thundercracker can make lightning appear. Like they all have a magic power.
Hmm.
um, Optimus Prime can be like the most compassionate and caring, like big brother dad type dude that you love him so much, and then he dies.
Yeah. I well, look, I think that speaks to the IP as a whole. Maybe I was a little too harsh on it earlier, but I think that speaks to the IP as a whole that it's maintained for this long, considering things like it and He-Man and whatnot were just created to sell toys. It was just
Yeah,
basically a 20 something minute commercial that kids like us watched in the 80s and we're like, I gotta buy that toy because this fucking cartoon is amazing. So I
yeah,
think, that's part of the whole equation when you make a role playing game. Is like it needs to hit those important points of like nostalgia and fandom in order to sell the concept. And then I think the actual rules, as long as they work, I think people are going to have fun. You know,
yeah, yeah. It's
I'm
just,
trying I'm trying not to take a shit on the rules. I just don't think
yeah.
they're as important as everything else in the book.
I mean, everything else, like the lore, the setting, like the from the desk of Shockwave note, like
Mhm.
really early on, is just stuff I love. Some of the like free expansion characters, like a multiple roll-on table for like running into Starscream and what shady shit he's up to. That's just a free download from the Renegade Web Studio. Was a
Yeah.
free RPG Day thing. Like the lore and the setting stuff, yes, the way it emulates the character classes, what you would see for a bot on the show or any of the shows or the comic books is great. I just at the end of the day feel like everything that we've learned about role-playing games as devices for telling stories in the last like 16 years,
Mhm.
this system feels just sort of antiquated.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
feel like if this came out in like 2003, I'd be like, holy shit, like this is awesome.
Right.
And now
That's
I'm just
the
kind of like, well, I'm in too, because I've just been reading the Avatar role playing game.
Oh my God, I
Like,
gotta get that. Yeah.
and like that's powered by the apocalypse. Like, and
Mhm.
I'm like, oh wow, that's cool. So
Yeah, I mean that's the reaction we had to D&D 3.5 in the early 2000s was like, holy shit, you know, what a drastic upgrade, you know. But is that an argument versus like crunchier systems or more procedural systems versus something like Powered by the Apocalypse, which is it definitely is more in the story game, side of things. I haven't read the Avatar role playing game, but I played a lot of Dungeon World and some of the other Powered by the Apocalypse systems like Blades in the Dark. And that's definitely more in the like, you know, not hand wavy, but more of like story gaming uh bent. Whereas this is way more crunchy than that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I think I just wish the slider were a little bit like a quarter of the way on the continuum from like 3.5 to Powered by the Apocalypse. I wish they just scooch it over just a little bit more
Gotcha.
to
Gotcha.
narrative aspects. But
Yeah.
I still really want to play this.
Yes.
Like I'm 100% all in on this game because I've also purchased The Time Is Now, the full-length campaign book, um,
Sure.
the Decepticon Directive, the book. So you want to be a Decepticon, huh? Here's how you run a Decepticon campaign, which is awesome because looking through the rules, there's this perk that all Autobots get called For the Allspark.
Mm-hmm.
The Decepticons get one too. It's called All Hail Megatron.
Yeah, see, and like we're enjoying that. I'm laughing at that. That makes me feel good, which I think goes to our earlier points here. But let me ask you this, like I mean, I'm based on what you just said, like as I was reading this book, granted it was a month ago that I read it, but like would this game have done better is instead of having like character creation, they just gave you the Autobots fully statted out to play. And then if you wanted to make your own, they would have like modification or ways to change things around, or maybe a separate book for creating your own Transformers. Like when I read this, when I got to the character creation part, this is going to sound so weird, but this is probably the first role playing game where I was like, I don't want to make my own character. I want to
Mm,
play fucking Wheeljack or Perceptor or Blaster. You know what I mean? I think you once told me about somebody who made like a Transformers character with this game or another one where they were a lawnmower was their alt form.
yes.
Okay, that's fun, but like I don't want that to be Transformers. Do you know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
don't. That's kind of depressing to me. No offense to whoever made that character. Was it you or
Well,
like?
no, I was running the game. We were doing
Yeah,
Mechamorphosis and they were all
that's what it was.
Decepticons.
Yes.
So my lovely wife played pterodactyl who had very
Hmm.
long claws and was turned into a pterodactyl. And then so I wish they had a really clever name for it was a riding lawnmower. They had a
Gotcha.
really great pun name. Um, and then there
Yeah.
was like Megawatt, I think, who was a microwave. Like it was,
Right. Right. And all of that is awesome and I love it and I'm not trying to take a shit on that at all. But that's not Transformers to me.
yeah,
Does that make any sense? Like I
yeah,
kind of don't want a Transformers universe where there's a riding lawnmower character and a microwave character. As
yeah, because
awesome
that's
and as
very
funny as I think that those are.
well. No, I think that predates it, but that's exactly the shit that you would see in a Michael Bay Transformers movie.
Right. Okay. I didn't see those movies, so
I did. And for the listeners at home, Lindsay Ellis, The Whole Plate is a 12-part deep dive into the Michael Bay Transformers movies on YouTube through the lens of like queer theory, communist theory, auteur theory. It's if you are casually interested in film and want something dumb enough to have smart things said about it to help you make that bridge and get you thinking, oh man, I recommend it. I don't recommend watching Michael Bay movies.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I don't think the characterization this lean towards those like weird spy ones. I mean, they have little sideboard like where are the beast forms are just like they're not really in
Hmm.
here. That's There'll be a later book. Speaking of which,
Yeah.
there's one other book I have, the one that I was really excited about, the most recent one.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Transformers, The Enigma of Combination, so you can be a devastator.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, Devastator's my favorite. The Constructicons are my favorite Transformers.
Yes.
Um, right, but that's through the lens of a child who grew up to be a juvenilely minded young person and then grew up to be a 40-year-old curmudgeon. So, um, yeah, I think this game would have been better for me if it had just been just the characters I know and love from the cartoons. I'm gonna be this guy.
Yep.
Um,
I
plus
think,
the addition of the female Transformers from the comics and whatnot.
yeah, I think that would have been a really interesting way to go because I actually, like, while I was deeply suspicious of the Marvel heroic role-playing game from what is it? Margaret Weiss Games, actually,
Hmm.
when they had that license before they lost that license.
Right,
That book was just most of it was data profiles of Marvel superheroes.
right,
Like these
right.
are your character sheets. There was a loose, like, couple paragraph here. If you want to make your own character, you can kind, I
Exactly.
guess, do this.
Yes.
But like there are so many characters in this universe, and our game is about being them.
Right.
So,
Exactly. That's a great comparison. Yes. And that speaks to that the game is simulating the fandom aspect of it because if you put a Marvel superheroes role-playing game, what most people are going to do is try to make Batman in the Marvel universe, you know, or they're going to want to make Wolverine or their favorite character anyway, just a slightly different. And I just kind of feel like that almost not cheapens. I'm struggling with the word, but I don't know. We can move on. I think we made our point there.
yeah.
Well, okay. So have we talked about why it's cool?
I mean, it's cool because it's got Transformers in it, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know that that may seem like one of those normally flippant, oh, Jesse cheekily answered the question in the obvious way, but no, it's cool because Transformers are cool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I love them. It's like getting back into my Transformers fandom and playing with Transformers toys with my son has been kind of like one of the continual shining moments of being a dad. Just like having this play element and setting up these crazy cityscapes and battles. And yeah, I'm an adult and have adult money and I like them too. So my son
Yeah.
probably has more Transformers than the average 6-year-old should. Like a 6-year-old probably shouldn't have Triptychon, but he does. So,
Would you play this game with him?
yeah, we've made a character.
Oh, tell me about it.
He made
Is
a
this the Who'd
seeker
you
that has
make?
like a lightning crown that shoots lightning out of it.
Mm-hmm. What's the guy's name?
It was like lightning arc or something like that.
Cool.
Yeah. It was really fun. And we just went through the steps and he did a great job.
Okay, so that answers my next question is how easily did would a kid pick up the character creation process for this game or at least the rules for this game?
I just said, what do you want to do? He's like, I want to be what vehicle do you want to be? Okay. You want to be strong, fast, or smart? Okay. And then we just shaped it into that. Like
Mm-hmm.
he wanted to be smart and fast and a jet. So Seeker, I think he picked Gladiator as his background. Um, I would have paid to see those pit fights.
Gotcha.
Um, yeah, and we just went through it, and I said, "Do you want to do this or this?" And he'd say this, and we'd write it on the character sheet.
Nice.
Super easy, a good time.
So then what if you were running this game, which one would you do? The over the top Saturday morning cartoon version or the, character driven IDW drama?
I have two Decepticon campaigns mapped out for the IDW drama. Like,
Interesting.
yes, I've talked about it. I thought on the podcast. I don't know if that episode ever aired, but one of them.
It might be one of the lost episodes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. One of the campaign ideas I had was to just like not have Autobots or Decepticons,
Mm-hmm.
but just be like you're like mining bots and there's like a labor dispute and it gets ugly and blah blah blah. And you're like basically you find yourself being really sympathetic with Megatron at the end of the first arc of campaign because
Mm-hmm.
he's a noble like labor leader before,
Mm-hmm.
the whole tyranny and madness and like Yeah, that before it all went to his head. Um,
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I think if I were to run a Transformers game, I would stick to purely the Saturday morning over the top. Um, Probably just not try to make it a campaign, one or two sessions here and there. Like keep it in the background, keep it in my pocket as like um the normal game isn't going to happen for whatever reason, but we all still want to play. And I'm like, well, let's play a one shot, like an episode of Transformers, and I would like, get the music and do like an over the top narration, you know what I mean? And just make it
the
like a
year is
like a stupid one off.
2024, the
Yeah.
planet Cybertron. Yeah.
I think that'd be the kind of games I'd be interested in running because it's like, I don't know how far the fandom will take me for a game like this. Like if you put the Star Wars IP in front of me, I mean, I'm still looking for, um, a rule system that I would want to run like an epic Star Wars campaign in. And it may never exist there, you know, or I just haven't searched under every rock, but
Yeah, don't sleep on Fantasy Flight's gimmick dice system. I loved that system. Like
that's
all
the
the
one I'm going
games
to
with that,
check out next. Yeah.
I really, really liked it a lot. The way the dice work just for like introducing complications that feel very Star Wars is like it's cool. And it uses gimmick dice. Who doesn't love rolling gimmick dice?
Yeah. It makes me wonder if this, like you mentioned, powered by the apocalypse, and it makes me wonder what this would be like in a powered by the apocalypse game, and if that would be better or worse.
And see, this is the thing where I'm just like ultimately torn about this because I'm like, oh, it's too crunchy, but I'm like, I also want it to be mechanically toothsome to transform.
Yeah,
And it is mechanically toothsome to transform in this game. It
yeah,
matters.
yeah, yeah. This is man. This I don't know what to call it. This game is like an enigma to me because it's like the more and more we try to dissect it, the more I'm like, man, we just got to play this thing. So I guess
It's working.
I guess it's working. There's enough here that's compelling me to want to play it.
I will say this for the long campaign, and this is one of the reasons I thought about this specifically. This has enough of 3.5's DNA in it. There is a class, like a level system that
Mm-hmm.
goes to level 20 and like perks and feats to pick as you level up in your proficiency to like to specialize and do things. And then the gear system is actually slightly complicated, but also cool that you can, if you are the engineer background or the guy who does tech stuff, you can upgrade the gear in ways that are mechanically meaningful, which I think is always cool when there's a crafting system that works. That actually reminded me of the Fantasy Flight Star Wars RPG.
Okay.
Has a crafting system a little bit like that with adding mods and upgrades to your existing weapons. So like yeah, there's stuff to me that recommends this for a long campaign, and also with crunchy rules, I think you want to do a longer campaign because then once system mastery kicks in, it starts to be a whole different experience.
That's a great point, right? Like for a rules like game, it doesn't really have legs, does it? It's like you kind of just got the gist of it, you play it enough, and then you're kind of done with it.
Yep. One of the things I think D&D has poisoned our brains on because, as we've said before on the podcast, so many people started with D&D. If
Mm-hmm.
you're not getting a new plus something on your character sheet every couple sessions, it starts to be kind of like, eh,
Mm-hmm.
where's my reward loop? Well, yeah, I told a cool scene as my character, but and the advancements, I have, a good friend of the show, Mark Hare, his basically ran this long running powered by the apocalypse sci-fi game, and he said after about 14 sessions there stopped being any advances to take that are meaningful other than just like taking stuff from another playbook and diluting
Mm-hmm.
what you do.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
The bad guys, because this uses a challenge rating like system too, which is
Mm-hmm.
another, I mean, you can see the 3.5
Yeah.
DNA.
Yeah, it's obvious.
Yeah, this is the guy with a rubber mask in the fun house of 3.5.
Right. That's a
like,
great way to put it.
like he pulls it off. I would have gotten away with it too if it had been for you darn jaunty Mantis. I don't think they're trying to fool anybody.
No.
They went with a system that works. Um, yeah, I forgot I was gonna say. Oh, the challenge rating system. Like you can't fight any real name Decepticons as a first level character. Like Astro Train, who's in the book, will fucking murder you. Like
See, now, isn't that kind of a mistake though? Like
that's the thing I thought is weird, but they
that's
have
the first thing I
drones.
want to do.
They have like seeker drones who
Okay.
are like Starscream recolors.
This this is the difference this is a clear difference between where we're at with this game. Maybe this like I keep coming back to this, but this is why I want to play with the existing characters. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to fight a Decepticon drone. I want to fight Astro Train. You know what I mean? I want the Autobots to show up and be like, "Oh shit, that's Starscream. He's a fucking scientist. Everybody look out." You know what I mean? Like I didn't watch you know what I mean? I didn't watch the cartoon watching, the Autobots go up against Decepticon drones. The exciting part is when the Decepticons and the Autobots clashed.
But you
Like,
did, because who are those camera guys?
well, okay, but they are characters of their own, right? Like they're
No, the
just like,
camera dudes are just drones.
are
Like the
they?
Decepticons always had a whole bunch of drones. That's why
I
there's
thought they
so
all
many
formed up
jets
into
that look like
one.
Starscream. They're all just drones.
Okay. Well, that should goes to yeah. Okay, but you know what? I'm gonna double down on what I said though. I don't want to fight
What? You're gonna double
drones.
down?
Yes.
Okay.
I
Weird,
don't want
but
to
all
fight
right.
drones, even if that is what happened in the cartoon. That's not the part of the cartoon I want to play in.
Yes.
Okay. Why doesn't Starscream just join the fight?
Did you
Yeah.
find the table?
Yep. I got you. Okay. Well, this one was an enigma. I don't know
Of
what to think of it.
combination. I will say this. There is a background in the Decepticon directive book that is drone, where you're basically a drone that's coming to sentience. Like you're like, what the fuck? I can think. Like I'm not just a copy of Starscream. Like I got my own rich inner life that's slowly developing. And I was like, that's actually a pretty neat character concept. Like
Gotcha.
I am a clone slave soldier who is coming into my own awareness of my existence, and I'm with the winning team, Decepticons. Yay! All hail Megatron.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
They live in a
Interesting.
starship under the sea.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what else to say about this game. This one threw me for a loop. I got to be honest with you. I think it's really cool. I think the artwork is really cool. I think the rules work, at least on paper. Obviously, I'm a fan of 3.5 D20 Dungeons and Dragons, so the adjacent elements appeal to me. I enjoyed reading the little bits and pieces. I liked the different elements of character creation. But I really do have to play this thing before I give a final judgment on it.
Yep. I will say there was one other thing I should have mentioned it earlier when I was talking about the mechanics and skills. This is the thing that kind of really jumped out at me. Is like, why? Because they're trying to have it be this universal system with the same rules for G.I. Joe and the
Mm-hmm.
same rules for Power Rangers and the same rules for, My Little Pony. There's actually even a crossover book, like how to run crossover campaigns. And there have been Transformers and My Little Pony crossover comics. And of course, Transformers G.I. Joe and Transformers Power Rangers, I assume, because, the license there. So why not?
Mm-hmm.
One of the skills is animal handling. My transformer is an expert in animal handling. I am a sentient, thousands of year old robot from another star system. And on my world, everything is a machine. And I've crashed on Earth to continue this war, this civil war between the Cybertronian peoples that has endured for millions of years. And you know what? when I got here and I'm fighting that war, you know what I really learned how to do? I just really watched a whole lot of The Dog Whisperer. And now
That's
I'm an
right.
expert at animal handling. So I can talk animals down or step on them because I'm a 30-foot tall robot.
Yep. I love it. I love it.
It seemed weird, not going to lie. Aha moment just for format. My NDA is up. A tweet that said my NDA is up. I can now announce that I've been working on a Transformers role playing game. That was my aha moment.
What?
One of the designers tweeted what was
Oh,
cleared from his NDA, and he said, "Hey, I've been working on a Transformers role playing game," and I was like, "Aha!"
okay. I don't have an aha moment. I'm hoping that comes when I play it. So, mission accomplished, Jesse. I want to play it. But I've wanted to play almost all the games that we've had in this season.
Have there been any you haven't wanted to play?
Yes.
Okay, we'll save that for like an end of season retrospective.
Yeah. Yep. And dear listener, if you have any opinions whatsoever on this episode, the Transformers role playing game, the comics, the shared Hasbro universe, or anything else that might come to mind, you could probably email it to us at jauntymantis@gmail.com.
I do check that mailbox.
We got quite a few of them, don't we?
No.
Yeah,
No.
we're just swimming in emails, people. So, keep it brief. And until that, and until next, oh God, and until our next episode, get out there and play some fucking role playing games or some shit.
Yeah, turn to a robot and drive away. I don't know.
That's right.